If you're a spiritual entrepreneur, no doubt you're following an inner calling, a passion, something that lights you up. But how do you know when you're on that path? How do you know that this is the calling for you? And what do you do if you find yourself off the path? What do you do when you find yourself in aspects of confusion or maybe some frustration or doubt? What is it that you do then? Well, that's why we have Trish Bishop here. Trish is going to walk you through the 4 Cardinal Directions and using some key questions that she helps her clients with to help them get back on path and help really start to understand what their calling is. So what you're going to go through here is 1, how to really shed what's no longer serving you. How to really shed what all the stories, the fears, the doubts that are no longer serving you. 2, how to face and acknowledge your deep inner fears. 3, you're going to open up to your true potential and what's possible for you. And 4, what you're going to do is actually choose that direction. Actually how to step into your purpose and really make that path. Let's dive in. Hello, once again, my online family. Welcome back to another episode of the Awaken Your Business podcast. Yes, you know this face. It's Trish Bishop, a incredible part of the serving circle. We're talking all about how to discover your path, because so many people are wanting to find their path. They're wanting to find their purpose. They're wanting to find more passion and zest in life, or what Trish will call your 10. Discover your true 10, claim back that 10 in your life. And many people are asking, how do I do that? How do I get there? How do I discover it? How do I uncover this? I'm following my excitement, and I'm trying to get on this path of business, but I'm not too sure what's around the corner. I'm not too sure what's next. And so if that's your passion to discover that path and discover your journey, then this is what we're all about. So Trish, I'll read your bio real quickly. Sure. And then we'll dive into your story. So Trish is the author of The Question Journey, a Shaman, Intuitive, Empath and Certified Angel Guide. As a highly successful IT project manager, Trish was diagnosed with Scleroderma in 1998 and was told she had 7 years to live. After refusing all medications, this resulted in Trish making some radical changes in her life, including diet, exercise, and a host of spiritual discoveries that resulted in what she calls a beautiful, scary, ridiculous, and amazing journey to reclaim her health and ultimately her life. Her mission is to empower people to reclaim their 10. I'm assuming that's a 10 out of 10, not a 10 out of 100.
It's the 10 out of their 10. 100%. Yes. And that's important, because a lot of times people are looking at other people's 10s and going, I'm not that. Yeah. And what we need to do is just step into the 10 that we are.
Yeah. Before we dive into your story, how would you describe your 10? How do you know how does someone know when they're at that 10 level?
I think that there's an important piece there, which is having people in your life that see the 10 in you. That helps to facilitate your ability to see that. However, what it feels like when you're stepping into your 10 and you're owning your 10 is that this conversation around, if you're the type of person, for example, whoever says, oh, wow, I really need to create some boundaries, that conversation would never happen for somebody who stands in their 10. Because when you stand in your 10, you already have those boundaries. If you are the kind of person, for example, who, is not sure which direction to go, or think that you're really good at something, but you're not really sure because you keep comparing yourself to somebody else, you wouldn't be in that position if you claimed your 10. And the really cool thing about being in your 10 is that you're in flow, right? And when I say you're in flow, it means that things are just easy. So there's not just road bump after road bump after road bump. Now, easy does not mean you don't have to do the hard work. Easy means, let's put it this way. Simple, not easy. Okay, that's probably the better way to say it. It's simple. So it's not like you're hitting a roadblock and then you go this way and there's another roadblock. It's like you're just moving. So you're still doing work, you're still showing up, you're still doing all the things you need to do. However, as you do them, there's more synchronicities. There's more things that are showing up that are aligned with what you do. People show up out of left field through a virtual introduction that you never would have imagined, and take you down a whole new path that just continues to open and open and open, rather than feeling like you're banging your head against a brick wall. So really stepping into your 10 is it's being aligned. It's where your energy and what you think and what you say and how you feel is in alignment, right? Because when we're not in alignment, people sense that, and there's an inherent distrust as a result of it. So that 10 is really where all of those pieces, it doesn't mean we're complete, right? This is a journey. We're always going to be in that process of growth. But what it does mean is that those pieces come into alignment. So who you are is who you are, right? You're not trying to be something that you're not. You're not wearing the mask. You just are stepping out. As some people, and the big fear around this is people feel like they're stepping out naked, right? And in essence, you are, because you're showing your true self. So, just moving past, hey, you know what? I look pretty good naked.
Have that confidence. Doesn't matter if you're
totally.
Doesn't matter if you're in lockdown or what it may be. You can wear a mask, but you don't need to wear clothes.
Exactly.
So tell us a bit about your story.
Pants on. I do have my pants on, Tyson.
Oh, good. Good to have that clarified. Yeah,
exactly.
We'd love to hear about your story. We'd love to hear, well, first of all, what was it like to be told you have 7 years to live? That's a crazy part of that journey. But tell us all about that part of your life and how it's sort of all this came together to helping people in what you call the journey.
Yeah, it's interesting because there was two things that happened kind of around the same time. And one happened a little bit earlier, started in like 92 when I launched the first internet service provider in Canada. And that was insane. I mean, that was absolutely insane. I remember it was funny. I used to go into rooms, and every Wednesday night, I think it was, we did introduction to the internet sessions, and we would try to convince people that email would be a good idea someday, and they thought we were insane. So it was the floppy disks, it was all of that. So it was phenomenal. That was my first exposure to what it was to be on a high performance team, in my corporate work. However, it was also, where I became addicted to adrenaline, which I think was a big contributing factor to, manifesting that the disease that I did. So in 98, I just given birth to my daughter. And I'd had these symptoms for a couple of years. They weren't able to diagnose it for a couple of years. And finally, they did diagnose it as scleroderma. And, I'm sitting on this bed in a hospital. The doctor comes in, she tells me that you have scleroderma, and, we're going to put you on an aggressive round of methotrexate, and we estimate you probably have 7 years to live. And, the reality is that I think if they had said you have cancer, I probably would have been afraid, but I had no idea what scleroderma was. So I probably didn't know enough to be afraid. Which definitely worked in my favor, and fair enough. But there was a couple of things that happened. First and foremost, my intuition was like, absolutely no to the drugs, absolutely no. And I had no idea what I was going to do, because let's be real, back then, you did not have access to the plethora of information that we do now. Like, you didn't, right? You couldn't go onto the internet and search out natural, holistic, healing options or anything like that. It didn't exist. So, I'm literally going to the local natural health food store and looking at things on the bulletin board to try to find people who could help me. And I did everything. I mean, you name it, I probably tried it through that process, because here's the deal. Number one, in making that decision and having just given birth to my daughter, I already had a son who was 7 years old at the time. My husband, of course. It's like I had no desire to die. I did have to face my fear of death. So that was part of the process that I had to go through. Number two, I never took ownership of that condition. So I never have said in all of these years that I have that condition. I say I was diagnosed with, right? So I never ever took ownership of the fact that I had it. And number three, when you make a decision like that, oh, I'm not going to take any medication. Well, you don't just go home and wait to die, right? There's a massive personal responsibility piece in there where it's like, okay, so what do I do now? And figuring out what that looks like. And so the next piece is, of course, putting yourself first and being willing to understand that if you don't commit to what you need to do, you're not going to be here for your family, right? So, really, really taking that ownership and moving into that space. So I literally tried everything. Like I said, you name it, I've done it. Past life regression, astrological, colonic hydrotherapy. I mean, honest to God, like if it's there, I've probably done it. However, what I would say is that I believe that we can set ourselves up physically for dis-ease in how we treat our bodies, the food we eat, lack of exercise. Mine was adrenaline addiction, I do believe, to a great degree as well. But how we manifest it, I think, is definitely a function of where you are, emotionally and spiritually. And for me, I had a very closed heart at that time. And scleroderma is a very restrictive disease. It is a condition that creates scar tissue inside of the body, in essence, a very simplified version, until the organs cease to function. So, it's very, very much a reflection of where I was. So for me, while I definitely did the diet and exercise, 100% I did. I'm not going to say that I didn't. I do believe the most contributing factor to the fact that I'm here now was most definitely that spiritual journey of discovery, and figuring out, who I was and who I needed to be and how I needed to show up and forgive and surrender and, all of that.
Mm. Have you read Anita Moorjani's book, Dying to Be Me?
No, I have not.
Okay. That's something you'll it reminds me of what you're talking about here, where she was diagnosed with cancer and just in the lymph system all over. And in her story, just to cut it short, she physically died, and in the other realm, basically was told that it's not your time. You need to go back. But what she was given was this insight of why this disease was able to manifest in her body, and it was all around. She wasn't stepping in her power. She wasn't doing what she was here to do, which manifested in this physical disease. And so what you're describing here is, well, when you align with more of who and what you are, and you're doing your path on this planet, you're spiritually and emotionally aligned with that journey, and that what manifests in terms of your health, physical body, is the byproduct of that. Is that the way you would describe it?
Absolutely. I absolutely would. I think, and you know what, it's really interesting that you say that, because even in the food space, right? So there was one year that my husband and I did a 1-year cleanse. It was ridiculous. And the thing was, the entire thing we were focused on, just to that point that you mentioned, was, here was the thing. There was a sentence in a book that we read that said the root cause of all disease, other than that which is genetic, 2 to 5%, is toxins, malnutrition, and stress. So we decided to do a science experiment. We both went in, 2 different people, 2 different sexes, 2 different conditions. Okay. Same process, same results. So we basically went in, removed the toxins, removed the stress, and nourished the body. And at the end of the year, neither one of us had any symptoms, right? That was pretty powerful in my world. So, but the thing is that we were never focused on weight loss, for example, right? Weight loss was a byproduct.
All right, we're back. Trish just got dumped by her internet, so she should feel very, very welcomed back. But if we keep our internet together, we'll see what we can get through. But if you want to kick back where you left off, that would be great. All about this sort of journey was unfolding for you, right? So there was all this emotionally and spiritual health that you were working on, and as that sort of unfolded for you, you realized, okay, well, the things in my life are starting to become the byproduct of my alignment with myself, right? So what was that change for you? What sort of shifted? What was the sort of big pivot point for you? Was it something you tried? Was it something that happened? Was it something that you realized? When did everything start to change for you?
I think there was a couple of key points when that happened, but for me, what I call it is, I call it locking in, right? So when I say that, what I mean is, when the moment happens, it's like, I literally feel it go right up through my spine like a steel rod. Like, it is locked in. I am committed. So whatever it is, I'm committed to it, right? So the one piece was when I knew I wasn't going to take any medication, and I had to own that. I had to take personal responsibility for, okay, what do I do now, right? A next piece was really facing my fear of death, because I knew that the more energy that I gave to that fear, the more I was actually hindering my ability to heal. Another pivotal point was, I remember, this is so interesting, right? And this is the thing. So as you uncover that trigger, right? So for me, I know it was the closed heart. I know it was from the fact that my heart was closed. And I remember very clearly a very good friend of mine, a coach, and I worked with many over the years in many practitioners, I'll call it, but in many cases they were coaches as well. So I remember her saying to me, Trish, I want you to imagine your heart is in a box, whatever that box looks like for you. It can be a beautiful treasure box, whatever it is, right? Imagine it in your mind. And she said, now once you've imagined that, I'm going to give you the key. Well, holy crap. I want to tell you, it was weeks before I used that imaginary key to open that imaginary box.
Wow. What did it?
Right?
What gave you the courage to say, okay, I'm going to use this golden key? What gave you the courage to finally do that?
I knew if I was that scared of doing it, it was the very thing that was holding me back from where I needed to go. Right? Like if it didn't mean anything, then so what? But if I was sitting there for 3 freaking weeks, scared, out of my mind every time I thought about using this imaginary key, this imaginary box, hello.
Right? Yeah. What were you scared of? What were you scared of most?
I think for me, it was the idea of opening my heart, right? Like what I might find, when I opened that box, right? Bruised, battered, torn, neglect, whatever, right? And then there's also this function of okay, well, there's 2 pieces, right? And there's the conscious level, which is, okay, what am I going to find when I open the box? There's the subconscious level, which is the next layer, which is, okay, well, what does that mean after I've opened the box, right? Like, am I now going to have to open my heart? And what does that look like? And, I think there's a subconscious piece around that also, is enough to scare the crap out of you. So, just really understanding that, until you're ready to you do this all the time, Tyson. Like, this is your gift, right? Like, you and I have had conversations where you've coached me and helped me to really kind of uncover that deep rooted, 5-year-old issue that created this, deep rooted fear, belief, whatever it is that's holding you back. You have a real gift for that. So that was the big piece. So those were a couple of the trigger points. I think there would be a few more as well, but ultimately in each one, you have to choose, right? And I think the biggest part of the journey for most people that is challenging is that they can't see the choices, right? How do you choose when you cannot even see the choice before you? That becomes a difficult part of that process. So, a notification, a trigger or an indicator of a choice is you're scared crapless. Let's be real. So, yeah.
Many people are there. Many people are in that situation, and this aligns with getting on your journey, getting on your path. I think being part of living from your 10, where, like you said, is total alignment, is to heal the very things that are stopping you from achieving that. And It takes a lot of courage to open up your heart, live more vulnerably, live more open, where it's like, holy shit, what happens if I get hurt? What happens if people they see the real me and they don't like that? And they reject me? What the hell comes up in the form of fear around those topics? And I think it's really going through those. It is going through those, which allows you to open up to your 10. Because if you have this closed heart, which many people do, the vast majority, in fact, it's an unfolding, right? That's why it's the journey. But it's the intent to open up your heart more and more and more, to live a place of unconditional love more and more, to live from a place of courage more and more. But it really does take that courage to get that key and say, you know what, I'm going to open up. I'm going to see what's in there. I'm going to face these fears. I'm going to face whatever's stopping me and holding me back. And on the other side of that, I'm going to surrender to whatever comes next. Like that takes a lot of courage.
You are not joking. It really does. And that's why, you know, this work, I've done a number of different processes over the years. And what I know is I'm a warrior of the light, you know, for the brave. Right. Like, I'm not the kind of personality that's going to work with someone in an effective way if they don't have the courage to step into that. Right. Like I'm just not that person. There are many beautiful, beautiful coaches who are that person that can help bring someone along who you know, is not ready for that yet. That's not me. And I understand that, and that's okay. I'm the one, you know, who's there for the person who is ready. Right. So you're not sitting there wondering, right? You're like, you've gone down the path and, you know, done all kinds of work, and it's like, you're still sitting there going, please, like, I'm ready. I'm in, I'm committed. Right. Let's just do this. Right. That's the person that is the best match for me, just because of how my energy shows up. Right. Like the energy has to be a match. You know that, you know, you have to be a good match for the person that you're working with. So I hold space for that. And people, but the courage is that is the key. And surrender is also key. I want to pull that one out too, because a lot of people, and they're not wrong, very much are in the belief that the work is forgiveness, and they are right to a degree, and then you move into surrender. Right. So it's not a one-stop shop where, okay, you go back and you forgive all the people and you forgive yourself. That absolutely has to happen 100%. I absolutely agree with that. And I continue to do that on a regular basis. And surrender is the next step of that journey. And that's the tricky part. Honest to God, I'm not joking. I remember when I lived on Vancouver Island, being on my front yard, laying on the lawn, grounding, right? Doing a surrender process. When I was done, like, I felt like a gutted pumpkin. You know, when you take your metal spoon and you're like digging out the inside of the pumpkin, like, that's what I felt like. Like, I was like, oh my God, you know, so, and then you feel gutted for days, right? And then you have a choice. What am I going to allow back in? Right. Now that I've cleared the decks, right, and I've surrendered, what am I going to choose to now own? Who am I going to choose to now be? Who am I going to choose to allow to come back into my space, right? And engage with me? What am I going to allow? You know, and so it becomes a very conscious activity where you get to choose how and who you are, and how that shows up, and what else you're going to allow in your life. And so it's a very, very powerful process for sure. And it takes a lot of courage.
Yeah. And what a shift that will be, like what you're describing, because you feel like this empty pumpkin because you've emptied out what I would call the false self, these patterns that we have been conditioned to say, who and what I am is what I have, or who and what I am is what I do, who and what I am is the opinions of other people. You know, these egoic patterns that have served us in some way, but are now keeping together this limited self, this small story of who and what we are. And as you surrender and do this deep grounding process, and, you know, on Vancouver Island, what you're melting away is what's not you. And therefore you feel like, holy shit, then who am I? But that makes space. That now makes space for what you're describing is conscious decisions to say, okay, well, what feels more aligned with, you know, who I want to be, my vibration, and who I really am. What do I want to bring back in my life? Who do I want to bring back in my life? What am I now allowing? What is it? What now am I able to make those decisions? And so it is that process of healing and what you would describe as, you know, that gutting out of what's not you to make room for what's closer to who and what you are. And so that would be my question. When someone comes to you and they're wanting to find more of their path, they're wanting to find more of their journey, and say, okay, I want this alignment stuff you've been talking about. I want this 10 stuff that you're talking about. What is that process like? I know you go through these cardinal directions, and that's what you walk people through. Before we go into those cardinal directions that are going to help a lot of people here, what are some of the challenges that people are facing when they come to you? What sort of stage are they at? What are they describing their challenge as, and the problems that they have? Give us a good understanding there before we dive into the different directions.
Typically what I'm finding is that the people who are coming to me are people who have already started the work, right? So they've already done some of this work. So they've already stepped into forgiveness, or they've already adopted or embraced a spiritual practice. They're doing their meditation, but the challenge is that they keep asking the same questions and getting, in most cases, it could be the same answers, but they know that that's not the real answer, right? So they're continuing to look outside of themselves for the answer, whatever it is. So I can't say the challenge is their business isn't getting off the ground, or because these are people coming from all different walks of life. Mm-hmm. And the reason that they choose to come on the journey is different in every case. However, what is the same is that they keep asking these questions. Maybe they go get readings done, or they talk to friends or whatever, and they keep asking these questions. And no matter how many times they get an answer, it doesn't resonate. And it's not resonating because they already know the answer to the question. Here's the interesting thing with powerful questions. At the moment you're able to articulate the question, you already know the answer. And this goes back to the courage conversation, because the courage conversation is, are you willing to entertain the answer that you already know, right? The purpose of going out and asking other people is to avoid the answer you already know. So the challenge they're having is so sometimes these deep, deep questions are around a lost loved one, or a partner relationship that's not working, or a business that I'm trying to launch and it isn't getting where it needs to be. Whatever that, whatever that challenge is, there is something around it that you already know you need to do. And because you've already articulated the question, and yet you're going everywhere you can to get the answer to that, except where it actually is. And that's the people, those are the people that are primed for the journey, because the journey is an introspective process. So I'm not coaching you by asking you questions, right? You're actually doing the work. But I'm setting you up in such a way that you can do the work. So you know where you need to go in order to get those answers for yourself. So it's a very beautiful process. I do it with myself a lot. It's a very beautiful process. It's a hugely transformational process. I mean, I am blown away by the transformations that I've seen. But the challenges are really going to be that person that's at that place where it's like, they keep asking, they keep not getting the answer. And they know the answer, and they're just, they need to be ready to be able to acknowledge what that answer is.
I hear the collective people listening to this being like, Trish, I'm ready to go in. And
bring it.
But before we do, let's take a breath and take in what you just said, because it's so big. It's most people looking outside of themselves for the answer, and they're looking everywhere where it's not. It's inside you. It's already you. And if you can articulate the question, you already know the answer. It's already there. And so take in that truth, and if you're ready to go deep, and if you're ready to understand that you're the answer and the answers are all inside you, then we can rock and roll with these cardinal directions. So let's walk through these so we can give everyone a bit of an insight in terms of the different directions, what they have to offer you, and how they can help you on this journey and on your true path. So let's start with the direction of south. So south is all what you've wrote here is shed what's no longer serving you. So what does that mean for you, and how would you guide someone through that to help them find their path?
Yeah. So when we do the journey, I have a sacred deck that I use. So it's a deck of cards that I use, and those cards get selected through a ceremony that we host, and we can do it virtually. So the card actually drives what the south looks like. right? For the individual. However, releasing what no longer serves you, or shedding, in the South is represented by the serpent, right? And it's about shedding the skin. So the South is really about looking at those things that are no longer serving you. And the really interesting thing about this work is that it's as tangible as it is ethereal, right? So while we are doing the majority of the work through meditation, it's also about being very aware in your day, right? So it could be, as you mentioned before, the things you have, right? So are the things you have that you believed you needed really serving you? Are the people that you've chosen to have in your life really serving you? Are all the applications that you've purchased to support your business really serving you, right? Is there a way you could simplify? Is there a way you could get more streamlined? Is there a way you could be saving money? So it's a combination. It's not like it's, let's go off to meditation land, which is a great place to be, but it's not all about that. It is about that real world application of starting to see, right? And being open to the things that are around you, and really asking yourself the hard question about, is that really serving me, right? Or, I've become ruthless with my closet, for example, right? Every 6 months I go through my closet, although I haven't had to do it since COVID, but because I pretty much wear the same thing every day. But I used to be ruthless. And if I didn't wear it in the last 3 months and I'm not wearing it in the next 3 months, it's gone, right? Which also factors into being much more discerning when I'm going to purchase something, right? So I'm no longer just going out and buying whatever clothes are out there. I'm being very, very specific and very intentional around what I buy, right? Rather than just having a closet full of clothes. So there's these things that are real world and tactical. And there's also these things that you're going to find in your meditation that are around relationships and that are around beliefs you have around yourself and how you show up in the world, and stories that you've told yourself that you need to let go of because they are not serving you. So it is a combination of both. It's very much on the emotional and the ethereal level. It is very much on the tactical, practical, real world level.
Yeah, it's all integrated, right? And so if you're listening to this, you can ask yourself, okay, what is it that I need to shed? What is it that's no longer serving me? Is it people? Is it things? Is it ideas or stories that, is coming up? Or, is it the way in which I'm applying my business? Can it be more streamlined? Can it be more simple? Can it be more specific? Can it just be more minimalistic in terms of how I live my lifestyle? Right. So people can ask themselves that question and start to unfold. So is it a matter of just making those decisions consciously, one after the other, and say, okay, it feels aligned to remove this, it feels aligned to get rid of that? How do you reckon what's the best way to sort of apply that sort of knowledge?
Well, what it does is it will bring up those issues similar to what I talked about before with the heart in the box, right? It'll bring up those issues where it'll bring up those things that you need to face now. So it's not like you would do a journey of this nature and you're done and it's great, right? So each journey, like for example, I've done 3 for myself since December of last year, right? So, and it's not to say people have to do them all the time either. It's just to say that in each journey, when you're in the South, something will come up and you will feel it because you feel that visceral, resistance, fear, whatever it is. And so it's not so much that I'm going to go out and figure out all the things I need to release. It's that as I'm entertaining those things, something is going to trigger something for me. Okay. And that's the piece I need to work on. And then they would work with me to whether it's a specific guided meditation or other tools that I have that can help them to move through and shift that energy so that they can move past it. So it's about figuring out what, if I look across the landscape, whether it's emotional or practical, tactical, whatever, when I look across the landscape, what is the thing that really triggers me and creates that resistance? And then let's work through that piece so that can move aside and we can get ready to step into the West.
Okay, great. Which leads us into the West very nicely. So the West is all about face or acknowledge your fears, which I assume quite a lot's going to come up as you're coming out of the South and having all this stuff come up. What is this direction all about? How do people apply in their life? How does that help them with getting on this path and understanding their 10?
Yeah. facing your fears and acknowledging them. And I use the word acknowledge very specifically because it's not about getting rid of them necessarily, right? That's not always going to happen. I think there's an element of acknowledgement and ownership of it that can allow it to coexist. It's not like you have to obliterate every fear you have. I don't think that's the intention. So acknowledging is sometimes enough, not always, but sometimes enough. You can have the fear. Are you willing to stand in it, right? And continue to move forward regardless. So that's the piece around the acknowledgement. But for me, I remember, what was that fear that I had? Oh my gosh, it was crazy. It was something about, it was around money, for sure. It was around money. And there was even work that you and I did together, Tyson, that brought up a fear, although, it wasn't, and it was really around shame that I felt in asking for money, right? That was the conversation you and I had. And so I remember it was something along those lines when I did one of my Wests, and I literally, did the same guided meditation like 4 times a day for 2 straight days, just to reprogram, let go, surrender, go back on the timeline, look at the situations that created it, and it isn't about, again, solving it necessarily. It's about acknowledging and owning it. So if I acknowledge and own it, I can still move, I can still act, even though it's there. It's the fears that you don't own and to acknowledge that are really holding you back and you don't know it, right? So the West is about uncovering those fears that you're not seeing. And it's really, it's a really powerful process. And anything can come up, right? Like it can be, again, about relationships. It can be about money. Oftentimes it's about money for people. It could be that idea of, wow, if I show up in my 10, will I be found lacking, right? Will I be found less than? Am I worthy? Because at the end of the day, all of the people I've worked with over all of the years, that's the nut that you got to crack, right? It's the worthiness issue. So, and that shows up in a multitude of ways. There's 100 nuances around worthiness, right? So, how all of that shows up. So the West is very much about seeing the fear, facing and acknowledging the fear. It's not like you have to solve it. It's just to say, oh, there it is. And this is what it's causing. This is the important piece. What is the result in my life because that fear is there and I didn't see it? Right? That's the big thing. And that's the big thing that most people are coming back to me and saying after they've done this journey is to say, I thought I did all the work. I cannot believe what came up, right? Like there was still stuff there that I didn't have any idea. And you're brilliant at pulling these things out too, right? The things that we don't see, because those are the things that are holding us back in a way we can't even see we're being held back.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I feel like I always need to be the bearer of truth news, because so many people are like, oh my God, aren't I done with this? What isn't this healed yet? And I have to be the one often. Yeah. And I assume you feel the same. It's like we're in these roles where we have to let someone know, hey, you're never done. You're never done. And that's the beautiful piece. I'm like, you don't want to be done. Because what happens when you're done? Okay, you're ascended and you're now enlightened. And what happens? You're just on this planet and you just what?
You'd be bored out of your ever-loving tree.
I know, right? It's exactly right. But to acknowledge that you're never done. There's always, you're here to do the inner work, to heal, to learn your lessons, to have these wide variety of experiences and have this crazy journey. So taking the time to acknowledge that fear, to face that fear, to know what the outcome has been because you've held on to that fear is a real eye-opener for people, is what you're thinking. Is there anything else you have on this side, on this direction of West that you'd like to speak on, or are we moving to the North?
Yeah, let's move into the North. The North is very cool.
Okay. I think they're all cool.
They are all cool.
But the North is be open to potential.
Yes.
Is that it? That's what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly. So the North is held by the hummingbird, right? And the interesting thing, and the ancients. So the interesting thing with hummingbird is this is a little tiny, like what are they called? Like 3 ounces. Like they're little tiny bird, and they fly over 500 miles over the ocean with no place to rest to get to Machu Picchu, right? So there's no back door. There's no back door, right? So once you commit to a path, right, then, you know, the whole intention is that hummingbird is all about determination. So hummingbird holds the north. However, the ancients also hold the north. So the really interesting thing is that as you move through the south and the west, that's about getting rid of a lot of gunk, right? Like that's pretty much the pumpkin. Let's scoop out the gunk out of the pumpkin, right? It's a bleh, you know, so that's kind of like, let's barf the gross stuff out. Then you step into the north, right? And there's information that just starts to arrive, because when you clear out, you know, let's put it this way, even if in your house, okay, even if, and if any of you out there listening have done this, if you have gone through your house and done spring cleaning, okay, and if you think back to when you've done that spring cleaning, invariably you will see some new opportunity show up not long after that happens, because you make space, right? Maybe it's somebody shows up and brings you a gift or whatever it is. Or if you've been in, you know, in a business partnership and, you know, and somebody, you know, chooses to leave and they're now gone, and all of a sudden all kinds of opportunities start showing up because that energy was really heavy and was actually keeping opportunities from coming in. When you clean stuff out, you make room. And now all of a sudden in the north, you start to see things you never saw before, even though nothing really has changed other than you and your perception, right? So everything in the outside world has pretty much stayed the same, but all of a sudden now your landscape is wide open. I'll give you an example. And again, this is a super practical, tactical example. So it sounds like it's a little bit like, oh, wow, really? I'm going to sign up for a journey for that. But it can be huge. So let me give you an example. My daughter's now living in Australia, in Adelaide. When she first got there, when she first got there, she wasn't able to work, right? Because she didn't have her visa, and, you know, she had to go through all the proper legal processes and all that kind of stuff. Perfect, great. So here I am, you know, telling the universe, okay, I want to be in service. I am here to be in service. Help me to see how I can serve, and I don't want to do it alone. Right? So this is how I'm showing up, right? So I'm giving the universe an ultimatum. Yeah, dude, I'm here, but don't make me do this alone, right? And so in my first north that I did, that was the first thing that came to me. Was like, oh my God, well, Brooke's like got nothing to do. Hello. She's sitting there twiddling her thumbs. That's a resource. You know, it's a win for her. She can make money. It's a win for me because I get somebody that can play with me in this space and help me out. Like, that sounds so small, but think about a business owner, right? Who is sitting there doing it alone, right? And all of a sudden they go through this process, this journey, and now they have in front of them, because their perception has shifted and because they've released these things that are getting in their way, all of a sudden they see all these opportunities in front of them to help them, to support them, ideas they never had before, because they couldn't see, right? So it sounds like it's small, but it can be huge. And it was huge for me. She did a lot of great work for me that, you know, I'm still doing my day job. So it's like, you know, I'm not going to knock it out 20 hours a day. I'm too old for that crap. Right. So it was fantastic to have somebody who could step in and help me. And I didn't feel like I was alone in what I was doing. So that's just, you know, one example of what that can look like. But it really is opening up your perception once the gunk is gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's removing that gunk that allows you the lightness to be like the hummingbird who just travels, just keeps going with no back door, no plan B, just to make that journey, to make that trip from a place of determination. And so the definitely that work is needed. So we move on to the East.
Yep.
The East is about choosing your destiny. What is this all about? How can you assist people with this direction?
Yeah, the East is amazing, and this is my favorite part as the facilitator and the person that's holding space for the journey. This is actually my favorite part. I love all of it because I do love holding space and helping people move through all this stuff. You know, you do the same thing, and you're so gifted at that. for me, this is my favorite part because it's so powerful every time when somebody just sees it so clearly for themselves, and they're there and they're ready and they just step in, and it's like, wow, I didn't see that coming. That's awesome. Like it's so cool. So the East is held by Eagle Condor, right? So the idea in the shamanic belief system is when the eagle and the condor fly together in the sky, there will be peace on earth. But the idea with an eagle and a condor is obviously they're seen from a great height, right? So they're way, way, way above the earth, and they're able to see down. So when we talk about the North, you opened up your perception. Now we're actually looking down from a very high point of view at all of the things around you, right? So oftentimes people can get very stuck in what their path needs to be based on how they started out, right? They believe, oh, if I change my direction, that I failed, right? So I started out, and this is how I'm going to do my business, and this is the thing that I'm going to offer, and it's not working, and it's not working, and they keep hitting roadblocks, and they keep having issues, and blah 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 blah, and the idea of changing direction, right, or revisiting what they offer, for them is a failure. And so they will not do that. They will continue to bang their head against that brick wall and bleed all over their face, rather than change direction and be perceived in their own mind as a failure, right? You and I have known each other for quite a few months now, Tyson, and I've changed direction a few times, right? Because it's like, if it's not in flow, I'm not going in the right direction, right? So it really, the East is really the ability to see from a very high perspective and really look at, at this point in time, you've done all that other work. So now when you look at it from that point of view, now all of a sudden you can see even more opportunities that you didn't see before. And whether it's business or personal or whatever that happens to be, at that point in time, you're ready to really see that and step into that. Now, sometimes they will see it and choose not to step into it, but they saw it, and that choice remains for them. The majority of the time, however, they will step into it in some variation, and it's okay. This is the thing with choice. It's okay to see the choice and not choose it. I think that's really important. That is okay. The key is, can you see the choice, right? That's the gift. The gift is if you can even see the choice, because when you can't see it, you can't make a choice, right? Choosing not to do something is not a failure. So when we see those choices, we can choose what we're going to do with them. An example of what that looked like for me, this was the third journey that I did this year. And again, I said to the universe, okay, help me, thank you for showing me how to be in service. Thank you for showing me how to be in service. But I was challenged because I have my book, The Question Journey, okay, whose audience is very much around people who are ready to do that personal development work. I also have a program called How to Be a Rock Star, which is very much around corporate, right? And I was like, again, with my ultimatum to the universe, thank you for showing me how to be in service. I don't want to build two platforms, right? Like, I don't want to build two audiences, right? I still got my day job. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So it's like, this is what I'm putting into the universe, right? So when I did that journey, I am not kidding you. And that's, I call myself an energy integration coach. I channeled that in my East. And it was brilliant because it was like, wow, in that space, I can do both. And I don't have to build two audiences. If I'm doing this work, I will pull in elements of the question journey, and I will pull in elements of how to be a rock star. And I can merge them together in whatever way makes the most sense. And oh, by the way, it also introduces this capability of helping people how to learn how to use energy tools, which I've been doing since I was a kid, right? So it introduced, and I saw it, and the whole thing was just as clear as day. And I was like, whoa, right? Like literally, it went through me like a wave. I was like, holy crap. So it was very powerful. It was super crystal clear. And like within weeks, I had website up and running, like the whole thing. That's how I knew to my cellular level that this was the path. So for me, that was what an East resulted in for me as an example, so that people get. For other people, it could just be a realization of something they've been holding on to in their past that they let go of. And now their life can look different because they're not continuing with that belief system, and they show up in a different way. And it may not be transformational from a business point of view. It may be very much transformational from a personal point of view. But yeah, it's a very, very powerful process. And every single time when I see where people land, it's such a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful thing.
Well, let me ask you, just so people understand the difference, what is it like now? What does it mean to you to now have that certainty of, right now that this is the path, this is the direction that life's guiding me in? What does that mean for you now? And compare that to earlier on when you might be confused, or you might not know what path, or you might be in doubt, or whatever it is. So what does it mean to you to now create that shift and at least have that confidence and certainty?
Yeah, there's a bunch of things in there. So on the personal side, confidence and certainty is important. Like that, you say that, and that is fundamental, right? Having absolute confidence and certainty in what you're doing. For me, it meant I felt aligned, right? I was no longer at war within myself about these two things that I wanted to bring to the table. The universe showing me things on both sides, right? Like I would have people call me and they would be talking about this rock star thing, and I'd be like, oh, that's where my energy needs to go. And then all of a sudden I'd had people buying a whole bunch of books, and I'd be going, oh, that's where my energy needs to go, right? And so bringing that together and allowing me to be aligned is fundamental to my being able to stand in my power in that. It also creates, when your energy is aligned, it creates a massive momentum, right? So when your energy is not aligned, when what you're thinking and what you're saying and what you're doing and what your actual, what your soul space is not aligned, you're fragmented, and you cannot bring all that energy together and create a forward momentum. You're basically all off chasing all kinds of things all over the place, and your energy is all over the place. So when you bring all that energy in and it's aligned and you can go and it is all there, that is amazing. I mean, that is amazingly powerful. So that's one piece of it. The other piece of it is that when you have that alignment and when you create that energy and that momentum, it attracts energy. So all of a sudden things start to show up, right? So people start to show up, opportunities start to show up, conversations start to show up, and ideas start to show up. So for me, it's that creative space, right? Where it's just like things are just like bang, 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 and I love that. I mean, I don't know about you, but I love that flow. I love that energy. I love the creative space. I love that feeling of just being on purpose, right? So does that answer the question?
We're going to say yes. No, definitely.
Can you tell I'm a little passionate about
this? well, that's the byproduct of being in that flow, being in your alignment is that passion. And I feel the same. And, so many people on this entrepreneurial journey will also feel the same when they know what it's like to be in alignment. They know what it's like to be on purpose and be like, nothing else really matters. It feels like this is why I'm here. And it feels like this is my gift I'm here to give to the world. And so I don't think there's anything more important than that. And the more inner work you can do to create clarity around it, to give yourself that confidence and certainty, gives you the opportunity to take steps and leaps that require courage. That if you didn't do this inner work, you might not have the courage to take the uncertain step. Right. But if you do this inner work and you realize, all of this is aligned towards this, I've overcome or at least acknowledged these sort of fears, and I've started to realign with my true purpose. All of a sudden, I now have the confidence to take this leap, or to tell this person something, or to promote this one thing, or to whatever it is. And then, as you say, the momentum starts to take care of itself. And then your new job is to just unfold what's revealing within you, and then handle what's being presented in front of you. And I think that there's nothing more important than the unfoldment of that. It'll just unfold for you. You don't necessarily have to do anything for it. But anyone who's looking to get more of this, to go deep on these cardinal directions, and to find more of that confidence and certainty in their purpose and on their path, Where can they find out more about it? How can they reach out and connect more with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can absolutely find me at thequestionjourney.com, on my Instagram at Question Journey, and Facebook.com The Question Journey. So find me. I'd love to talk to you.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, I know they would, because you're awesome to talk to. That's why I love getting on calls with you and love having you in the serving circle, because you just offer such a great energy of service, and it just comes from so much experience of, clearly you've done a lot of the work, and now you're in your purpose, giving your guidance and spreading your light. So it's an absolute pleasure. What else do you have for us and for the audience listening right now, in terms of takeaways, some insights, some things to remind themselves? What's also in your heart that you feel called to share that would make this feel complete?
I guess the analogy that comes to mind for me, and I often think about it this way, is that if your life feels like you're standing on the beach with the surfboard stuck in the sand, and the waves are hitting you with your surfboard stuck in the sand, you know what I mean? Like you're just going to get crushed. Or you have the choice to go out into the water and put your butt on the surfboard and ride the waves. So when I say that, what I mean is you have built the belief system, and let's call it the box of beliefs and stories around your life right now. And I try to blow my box up on a regular basis, let's be real. So we have this box of beliefs and stories that currently are in our life. What I would ask you to do as a takeaway is to take a half a step back every day, breathe, and just not be going full bore into everything you do. And with that half a step, I would ask you to become aware. And in that awareness, what I would ask you to do is to say, does this feel good for me? Does this make me feel light? Right? Does eating this food make me feel good? Does, doing all this running around make me feel good? Does going to meet that person for coffee make me feel good? Does hanging around with that particular group make me feel good? Does doing this in my business make me feel good? And start asking yourself those questions, and feel how light or heavy it is in your body, and start to be more discerning around where you choose to spend your time and energy, and don't do the things that feel heavy. That would be the biggest takeaway. That's something that somebody can do right now to start to shift themselves out of where they are.
Cool. So stop doing what feels heavy, do more of what feels light in your body, and start to discern the difference. I love it. Trish, thank you so much for your insights, your guidance, your wisdom. Everyone reach out to Trish, even if it's just for a chat and as a connection. She'll definitely love to have a chat with you. So Trish, thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Always my pleasure. Thank you so much, Tyson.